Alright, so this is what your log footage probably looks like when you drop it into Premiere. Super flat, super washed out, and you're like, did my camera break or did I shoot this wrong? Nah, bro, that's just how log is. But this is what we're going for. Clean, cinematic, punchy color without hopping into DaVinci or any crazy programs. We're keeping it all inside Premiere today. I feel like most tutorials on YouTube are either way too complex or assume you're color grading in Resolve. But if you're editing music videos or stylized stuff straight in Adobe programs like I do, then this video is for you. Plus, I'm going to show you how to build this exact look step by step in like 5 minutes. It's simple, repeatable, and you can save it as your own base LUT. And by the way, this LUT that I'm using right here, it's actually from one of my packs, so if you guys want to go check that out or get some free looks, I got a bunch up on my website, links down below. But anyway, let me show you exactly how I make this from scratch, and I'll break down how I think about color when I'm grading music videos like this. All right, real quick, let's talk about what log footage actually is, because I know the first time I discovered it, I was like, yo, there's no way I can actually learn how to grade this. This looks way too complicated. But when you really look into it, it's not as intimidating as it actually looks. The thing is, it's not broken. It's actually quite the opposite. Log footage is super flat on purpose. It holds way more dynamic range, and you can push your color way further without trashing the image. I mean, you gotta shoot your log properly first, and if you did, then you'll have absolutely no issues. Think of it like shooting RAW mode on a camera. It looks kind of dead at first, but it's actually loaded with color information that you can pull out and tweak later to your own liking. And yeah, it looks trash until you grade it, and that's what we're gonna do. So now that we have our log footage pulled up right here inside of Premiere, the first step that we're gonna do is add an adjustment layer. If you guys don't know how to do that, you're gonna come to your project panel, and if it's full like this and you can't really click on the space, just click right here above, and you're gonna click new item, go to adjustment layer, and click OK, and you're all set, and you can just drag that in. So now we're going to add basically the whole like essential part of this effect, which is lumetri color. So we're going to throw that onto our adjustment layer, and the first step that you guys want to actually do for vlog is have a conversion LUT, and it all depends on your camera. I'm going to be dropping the actual conversion LUTs in the description below for completely free, so you guys can convert Sony, Panasonic, Canon, etc. so you can have your footage ready for Rec 709. So I'm going to add the conversion LUT. So inside of lumetri color right here, inside of the effects controls, the first step is going to basic correction, input LUT, and we're just going to browse. So right here inside of the conversion LUTs, I shot this on a Panasonic camera, so I'm going to select the Panasonic Vlog to Rec 709 cube. And as you guys can see, instantly it transforms our footage into Rec 709. It adds a bunch of color, but the grade is absolutely not done. We have a lot of tweaking to do. So you want to basically pick a hero frame, and a hero frame is a frame where kind of like everything looks good and nothing is kind of blurry. So you can really just scope out the best scene for color. And I think this is going to be our hero frame. We're going to base the color off this frame right here. So we're going to come inside of the effects control, and we have all of these options right here. And this is what we're going to play with first. So we're going to go through the temperature. And as you guys can see, if I bring it to the left, it's going to be bluer, and if I bring it to the right, it's going to be warmer. And I think for this clip, a kind of bluish would look good. So I'm going to put it at like -7. You guys can play with the tint as well, but I'm just going to leave the tint at 0. Play with the saturation, the exposure, and the exposure, I'm just going to bump that up a tiny bit. Play with the contrast to get like those higher blacks in there. As you guys can see, it makes the blacks a lot darker. So I think for the contrast, I'm going to make that like, I don't know, 47. Let me see what that looks like at 0. Yeah, we're going to make the contrast 50. We're going to play with the highlights. Just play around with all these settings. This is not specific settings. You really just have to play with them to match your video and kind of just use your eyes to watch out for what's going on. So just tweak all the settings, and right here I'm going to bring the shadows a bit down to like 6 is good, and the whites you can either bring it up to get a brighter image, but I think I'm going to put the whites actually at 0 on this, and I'm going to play with the blacks as well. I think I'm going to bring the blacks down a tiny bit so we get that higher contrast. And if I were to turn this off already, you guys can see the huge difference it makes just off the bat. So yeah, you want to play with this according to your footage for this first part, right? And now we're going to hop into the creative. What I usually like to do, I mean, you guys can just use the creative tab, but what I usually like to do is just add another adjustment layer on top. And as you guys can see, it looks a bit crazy right now, but let me go to lumetri color on the top adjustment layer and just reset everything. Perfect. And what I like to do now is throw the creative LUT on top of the Rec 709 on this second adjustment layer. And for this creative section, for the look, I'm going to be using Vincent Color's LUT pack, his film LUTs. They're super fire if you guys want to go check them out. So I'm going to click look, come to browse, and I'm going to select film cube 2. And as you guys can see, the difference that it makes already, it's a great starting point. The image is not completely done yet. We're going to tweak a little bit more things to get the grade to look actually better. But as you guys can see, this is Rec 709, and this is with the LUT on top. As you guys can see, this is an absolutely crazy starting point. Since we were using only this hero frame, we don't know what the actual other frames look like, so we're gonna look through it, and as you guys can see, everything looks perfect. If you guys don't have consistent coloring throughout like the actual shots themselves, you can individually cut these adjustment layers and tweak it. Takes a bit of time, but that's how you're gonna get the best result at the end. We're gonna come back to our hero frame right here, and we're gonna play around with the bottom adjustment layer where the Rec 709 is to actually get a better look. We can play with the faded film to kind of give it that more filmic look, but I think I'm just gonna leave it like at 10 or something. You guys can sharpen the image as well, but I don't really use that. I'm just gonna leave that at 0. And yeah, you can play with the curves. You can even add an S curve to kind of just like bring out the contrast. You just make something along the lines of this. As you guys can see, it kind of blackens out everything and just adds more contrast. And if I were to take the curves off, it looks like this. But I think this is a bit too high on the black, so I'm just gonna bring that right there and bring this like right there. And as you guys can see, difference that it makes, it just adds a bit more contrast into the clip. So S curves are usually a pretty good standing point for all of this, and you guys can play through with all of these settings, but I don't think it's super necessary unless you're going for a crazy specific color grade. And now the last section that I'm probably going to play with is going to be the vignette. And for the vignette, you can just like, you got to be careful with the vignette because it can easily ruin footage, and I don't think vignette actually looks good on this frame, so I'm just going to take the vignette off. But yeah, you guys get the point. You just really got to tweak and play around with all of the different options inside of the Lumetri color scopes. And if you guys don't have a LUT to actually follow along with, I'm going to show you quickly how you can like quickly recreate a LUT or even save a LUT. So I'm just going to take off this whole adjustment layer right here. So we're going to be back with the Rec 709. We're going to come back to our first adjustment layer, and this is the part where we're going to be actually playing with the image color itself. First of all, we're just going to close everything so we can just get like a better view. Perfect. And we're going to go to color wheels and match, and this is where you can play with the midtones, the shadows, and the highlights of the image. So for the midtones, if I wanted to make them a bit like, let's say green, as you guys can see, it changes the color instantly. But I think for this, I'm going to make the midtones something like a greenish teal color, but nothing crazy. Like right there, you guys can play with like the amplitude of it, higher, lower, and I think I'm gonna leave it here. Now his skin looks kind of weird, so we're gonna come and fix that. We're gonna come to the highlights, and we're gonna make the highlights along like, let's see, like a reddish yellow color, like something around here. And we're gonna play with the amplitude as well. If I bring this all the way down, and I think right here is the sweet spot, and you can play with the shadows. Oh, oops, you can play with the shadows as well. And for the shadows, I think something along, you don't want to play around with it too hard because it is pretty noticeable. I think something along like this looks fine. And if I were to turn off the color wheels and match, you guys can see the difference it makes. It's subtle, but it actually is the difference, and it's getting closer to the actual film LUT that we were using. And you can play around with the vignette just like earlier. And going to the curves, we already have the S curve, and you can play around with the curves on the different colors. So if there's a bit too much green, I think my image is kind of green, so I can just kind of like bring down the green curves just like a tiny bit. You really don't want to like do it too hard or it's going to be super visible. So like, let me just play with this a little bit. So now it's getting a bit too red. So yeah, something like this. And if I were to turn the curves off, as you guys can see the difference it makes, it looks a lot better with these curves. So yeah, that is pretty much how you color grade vlog. So yeah, that's literally it. Just a few tweaks and your log footage goes from flat to literally fire. This is the exact process that I use on like 90% of the music videos that I color, and once you dial it in, you can reuse it over and over again. There's no limit. And this music video that we were using in this video, actually I shot it myself and edited it and color graded it myself. The video is going to be out soon, so if you guys want to go check it out, and also check out my boy Plean, the artist in the video. He's a super fire rapper from the Parisian area, so if you guys want to go check it out and show him some love, it'll be much appreciated. So yeah, on that note, I will catch you guys next time, boys. And yeah, I mean, you guys already know when every single Wednesdays and Sundays videos dropping. So yeah, see y'all on Wednesday.